Okay.
Hello, I'm Brenda Haynes, and I am currently the president of the board for the Oshkosh Food Co-op.
And I'm Susie Vetti. I currently serve on the board of the Oshkosh Food Co-op and also served as board liaison to the Capital Campaign Team. We are delighted to be with you today to share what we have learned about running a charitable campaign as part of a co-op capital campaign.
Now, we asked JQ about the specific questions that the Food Co-op Initiative has been asked with regards to running a charitable campaign as part of a capital campaign. And she indicated that these are the top 5 questions that people have asked. We will strive to answer these questions and more as we spell out how we did this. These are the topics that we'll cover in today's workshop. First, we're going to give a very quick overview of our project. Next, we'll talk about why we pursued charitable contributions as part of our fundraising strategy. We'll talk about how we conducted our campaign and also answer the question, what was the outcome? To understand why we pursued a charitable component as part of our capital campaign, it'll be important for us to give you a very quick understanding of our project. So let's begin. We've leased about 10,000 square feet on the first floor of the Brio building, a building that is currently under construction in Oshkosh's Central City.
The vision for our project is threefold. We want to strengthen the local economy, promote health, and build community. This vision plays a critical role in why we chose to pursue a charitable component for our capital campaign. More on that in a few moments.
The food co-op will occupy approximately 6,800 square feet with about 4,800 square feet of retail space, about 2,000 square feet of shipping, receiving, and back office space, and the additional space beyond that will be leased in the short term. We've set aside 2 spaces, one that's about 1,200 square feet and one that's about 1,000 square feet as tenant spaces. The remainder of the space on the first floor is a tenant lobby entryway and then bathrooms that will be shared by the co-op and the tenant spaces.
On the left, you see our general manager, Jeffrey Turon. We hired Jeffrey last fall. He started working with us in December of 2020, and the build out of the co-op began in April of this year. We are currently on pace to open in late summer, early fall.
We will be the first food co-op in Northeast Wisconsin. Now, that's a geographic region, for those of you who are unacquainted, of about 750,000 people. In Winnebago County, that's the county the food co-op will be located in, that the population comprises about 20% of that total. Now, this is essential to know because it means that the idea of a food co-op in this region is a very new idea to our population.
Our community's population, that is Oshkosh, is just over 67,000 people. The 2 closest census tracts to the co-op comprise about 17% of that population. The percent of people living in poverty in these tracts is more than double, and almost 2 out of 3 residents are low income. All of the immediate neighborhoods are either low income and low access or low access to healthy food options.
Now, the building that we will be located in is being constructed by Merge Urban Development. That's a company that specializes in redevelopment of opportunity zones in the Midwest. Opportunity zones, if you're unfamiliar, are economic development tools that allow people to invest in distressed areas in the United States. The purpose is to spur economic growth and job creation in low-income communities while providing tax benefits to investors. Now, this is an area that's very important to our community's revitalization efforts in its central city. And that's part of the reason that the food co-op chose to locate here.
This nice colorful pie are our projected funding sources. The project itself is about a $2.7 million project. The sources of our funding are split almost evenly in thirds. Roughly 1/3 from member-owner loans, 1/3 from charitable gifts, and 1/3 from other sources such as grants, community loans, landlord and vendor support, and member equity.
Roughly 50% of our budget will be spent on leasehold improvements and equipment purchases, with about 25% set aside for working capital and our project contingency. The remaining 25% of our startup budget is devoted to other pre-opening operating expenses. So that's how our budget for our project shakes out.
Today's focus is on the charitable gift portion of that pie. And we're going to share with you why we chose to pursue charitable gifts as part of our funding strategy, how we did it, and what that looked like in practice.
So we'll give you the finish, and then we'll tell you how we got there. In April of 2020, we exceeded our capital campaign goal of $1.6 million, ultimately raising $1,615,830.
And here's an overview of what that looked like. There are some unusual things about our capital campaign. First, we had a total of 622 people who participated, and that was 50% of our membership base at that time. The food co-ops who we spoke with in advance of our capital campaign typically had 15 to 25% of their member owners provide financial support. The smallest donation in our campaign was $10. The largest was $100,000. We raised $793,000 in charitable gifts and just over $834,900 in loans. This is something we were told had not been done before in food co-ops.
Now, before we get into more of the nuts and bolts of the campaign, we do want to make just a few disclosures for you. First, we are not attorneys, we are not CPAs, we are not tax professionals. So this presentation is meant for you to hear our story. It's not meant to constitute professional advice. So we would, of course, encourage you to seek appropriate legal and tax or financial counsel before you implement any fundraising strategy, including a strategy like the one we're about to outline.
So why charitable contributions? Why include those in your capital campaign?
For us, when we conducted our original market research, G2G research told us that locating on the west side of our community along the highway would be the most financially advantageous from a sales perspective. Our board considered that option, but ultimately believed that locating in the central city, an underserved area, was more aligned with our co-op's vision and mission. A central city location would allow us to strengthen the local economy by supporting local producers and spurring development in a formerly blighted property declared to be an opportunity zone. A central city location would improve access to healthy food in a USDA-designated low-income, low-access area. And a central city location would promote community building in an emerging neighborhood. So the first reason for us to pursue a charitable campaign was that the project itself was designed to meet unmet needs in our community.
Reason number two, the bottom line. We spent a considerable amount of time, as I'm sure you have, crunching numbers and running scenarios in our pro forma. When we looked at the range of options, we found that we could not afford the interest rates of banks or other lending institutions, even in a low-interest environment. While we could afford to pay some interest on loans, we couldn't really afford to finance the entire project that way. We needed a lower cost source of capital. Grants, donations, that kind of thing, to fulfill funding needs.
The third reason that we pursued a hybrid campaign, meaning a campaign that included both loans and charitable gifts, was that we wanted to give supporters choice for how they could support the food co-op. For some, it is simply more advantageous to make a charitable contribution to a project like this than it is to make a loan. The reasons for that may be many. For example, I remember on one call that I had, a donor, as I was telling him about our 15-year loan option, laughed and said, 15 years for a loan? I don't even buy green bananas anymore. So this donor obviously had an interest in doing something more immediate than doing a 15-year loan as our loans were structured. That's one of many reasons. And we knew that other member owners might have reasons of their own, that they would want a different path to be able to support the project. So that was another reason that we pursued a charitable component to our capital campaign.
Another advantage we saw to going with charitable donations was to expand our campaign reach. So this was our fourth reason. We decided that we wanted to make the campaign accessible to every member owner, knowing that some individuals might not be able to afford the minimum loan amount. We also had some member owners who wanted to support the campaign, but are legal residents of another state. They have long ties to the Oshkosh community and are passionate about investing in it. But these members could only support the campaign by making donations because our private loan offering required member owners to be Wisconsin residents. Being able to accept donations also allowed us to approach corporate, family, and community foundations, which only support charitable causes.
The fifth reason that we pursued a hybrid loan donation campaign, quite simply, was familiarity. Oshkosh is accustomed to conducting successful donor capital campaigns for capital projects. So as the first food co-op in Northeast Wisconsin, the concept of lending to a capital campaign was unfamiliar. We knew that we would need to do a lot of education with member owners to help them understand the owner loan concept. And while we did do that, we also knew that supporting a capital campaign with a charitable contribution would be a very familiar concept to them. Adding to the mix, we had a very tight timeline for our project. We needed to raise the funds or let go of our lease within 6 months of our site announcement and campaign launch. So to do that, we knew that we would need to be able to move quickly, and that giving supporters a familiar option to make a charitable gift to support the campaign may help them make their decision to support the project more quickly. So next, let's take a look at how we structured the campaign.
Developing the charitable component of our campaign was a multi-step process. While we were simultaneously working on development of the loan side of the campaign, our focus for this presentation will be on the donor side, the donations. Let's walk through these step by step. First, there was the pre-campaign research. Had anyone done this before? We talked to a number of other co-ops who we learned had some experience with this. We learned that several food co-ops had worked with their community foundations or other fiscal agents to accept charitable contributions. So we were encouraged to move forward. The next step was to identify a fiscal agent or a fiscal sponsor. We considered working with a national cooperative lender who also had the ability to act as a fiscal agent. Given our mission of promoting the local economy, however, we believe that the benefits of working with a local organization were greater. We contacted our community foundation to find out if they would be interested in serving as our fiscal agent for the campaign. Key throughout was knowing how our visions aligned.
We knew that there would be many benefits to working with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. As Susie mentioned, they're a local organization, and our mission is to strengthen the local economy. Our missions were therefore aligned on that point. Additionally, we had already set up a special projects fund at the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation when we first launched the co-op project. That gave us a relationship on which to build. We also knew that our community foundation has a history of acting as a fiscal agent for projects with community benefit. We knew that they managed funds, for example, for renovation of our convention center, of our community water park, and even a campaign to plant trees citywide after a major storm devastated the area. So we knew that this was an area that they had expertise in. Additionally, our community foundation has a very strong reputation as a fiscal steward and is well regarded within our community. As a startup, we knew that our alignment with the community foundation would help build trust with both member owners and non-member owners who may be interested in supporting the project.
In the process of developing our relationship with the community foundation, we had to create a fund agreement. And this turned out to be an amendment of an agreement that we already had. It's a wonderful document for the use of for our purposes. Funds could be used and can for a range of startup expenses, including leasehold improvements, equipment purchase, staffing, fees for architects and store design, even some marketing. Funds must be spent within 1 year of store opening, and the fund pays directly on invoices that we submit to them. The Oshkosh Food Co-op recognizes these funds as taxable income.
Now, many of you have asked over the last year, how did we go about messaging this two-pronged approach? So we wanted to share some of the materials that we used and developed for the campaign with you to give you an idea of what this dual messaging looked like. On the left and center, you'll see the front and back of a one-page handout that we used. The purpose of this piece was to be able to explain to our member owners what the project was, what the purpose of the campaign was, how the funding would take place, and ultimately where the building would be located. Within that center back section, we explained that there were two different ways to contribute to the project. The first was to make a member owner loan, and the second was to make a charitable contribution. So that was one of the first pieces that we developed. We wanted everyone to understand that there were two paths to supporting the project. The second piece that you see on screen here is a postcard invitation that we used to invite all of our member owners to a mystery event that was the kickoff for our site announcement and our capital campaign. We called it a mystery event because we didn't reveal the location of the site and the location of the mystery event until the day of the event. In fact, we provided member owners with clues to let them know, give them hints what the location might be, but we didn't reveal the actual location until the day of the event. That created additional suspense for both the campaign and the site announcement. In addition to those pieces, we developed a cover letter that covered both options. Now, this cover letter was included and provided to any member owner who expressed interest in participating in the campaign. That's the piece that you see on the left. It included and outlined how both options, making a charitable contribution or making an owner loan, could be completed. In the documents for completing an owner loan and completing a charitable gift were completely separate. The owner loan packet included a multi-page legal document that a member owner would sign and submit if they wanted to take part in the loan program. By contrast, if someone wanted to make a charitable donation, they would complete the piece that you see in the center and right on the screen. This was a pledge or donation card, and we did accept both pledges and donations for the capital campaign, for the charitable side of the capital campaign. Loans were held in escrow. The reason that we accepted pledges for the capital campaign charitable side was that we wanted to give people an option if they wanted to hold and see the campaign outcome before writing the check or making their charitable contribution. So we asked people to fill out this donation card and send it in if they were interested in making a donation to support the campaign. Another piece that we developed in preparation for the launch of our campaign was our campaign thermometer. We made the strategic decision to blend both loans and charitable gifts into one update. So we didn't provide updates on what the amount of the loans were versus the amount of charitable gifts. Instead, we talked continuously about the number of people who had participated in the campaign, as well as the total amount that was raised. While we had an internal goal of having 50% raised in charitable funds and 50% raised from owner loans, we wanted the message to the community to be very clear that we needed to raise $1.6 million in order to move the project forward. The campaign thermometer, this carrot, allowed us to make that message clearly.
As you can imagine, volunteers and willing, enthusiastic volunteers are crucial to a successful campaign. We were fortunate to recruit a team of a total of almost 40 people. 11 of those handled in-person contact with our prospects, and about 19 served on our call team. Then we had 7 member owners who were what we called administrative volunteers. They handled the mail packets and processed donations. This was their enthusiasm, their commitment through this was absolutely crucial to the success of the campaign.
To help the volunteers, these campaign teams, understand what would happen in order to make a call, and if a member owner expressed interest in participating in the campaign, we developed 2 different workflow documents. The workflow documents walked them through the steps, step by step, how they should proceed if someone expressed interest, declined to participate, or asked for a packet to consider their participation. Now, there's too much detail to go into in these workflow documents for this presentation, but if this is something that you're interested in, we have our contact information at the end of the presentation, and we would be more than happy to share. This simple visual graphic did provide people with a very easy to understand reference tool that they could use while on the phone with someone to understand what should happen and how they should proceed based on someone's response to their inquiry and invitation to participate in the campaign. In addition to developing those workflow documents, one of the absolutely critical pieces for the success of our campaign was bringing in Katie Novak from Katie Novak Cooperative Coaching. Katie is an excellent trainer and capital campaign organizer. She helped us set up the workflow documents, set up our call scripts, train our team, and ultimately help them understand how the campaign was structured, how to make an ask, how to follow up, and how the process would work over the course of the campaign. If you are considering moving forward, we highly recommend volunteer training, and I would highly recommend working with Katie as part of the campaign. It's one of the things that we learned through this process is that many people have never worked on a capital campaign before, and this isn't always an area of comfort and interest for people to be able to go and ask others to support something financially. Katie's methods help get people comfortable and prepare them for making those calls and those asks of other member owners. She's able to help member owners convert their passion for the project and their excitement about it into the knowledge and skill to be able to make those asks. And she was a really valuable part of our campaign team. So once we had done all of the preparation, we had prepared our materials, we had prepared our workflows, we had trained our volunteers, it was time to announce our site. And we mentioned that we did this at a mystery event. So we gave clues in the week leading up to the event. We invited people and told them that we would give clues and ultimately reveal the location of the site. Now, I need to paint a picture for you because in Wisconsin, the weather can be very unpredictable. This event took place the first weekend in November. And in November in Wisconsin, it can be 60 degrees and sunny or blustery winds and below zero temperatures. We got a day that was closer to the latter than the former. It was snowing, it was cold, and it was really, really windy. And we were expecting sort of the worst in terms of turnout, but we were blown away because a standing room only crowd filled our tent on the site to hear the announcement of the location and the launch of our capital campaign. We invited speakers, the president and CEO of our community foundation, our city manager, our Convention and Visitors Bureau director, our partner from Merge Urban Development, our developer. Were all speakers to speak about the importance of this project to the community. We also announced that day that we would be launching our $1.6 million capital campaign, and that through the silent or early phase of our campaign, we had already received commitments from board and committee members, past and present, of $250,000. So we were starting the campaign with a nice boost, and that we would be launching our in-person and call teams the next day, and that the campaign would be getting underway.
Another somewhat unusual thing that we did in this hybrid campaign was to recruit an in-person team. And this was a team of 11. And we somewhat selected these people because they had spheres of influence in the community, knew people, and they were all different. So they could reach out to a variety of people. And this group was a special group to work with. In our community, some of the more generous donors we knew would expect to be contacted personally. So that's what we set out to do. Team members were matched with people they knew. In fact, they selected the names of people they would call on. They called on both member owners and non-members. They met with people one-on-one, and some hosted house parties, gave group presentations, and asked people to consider supporting the campaign in a variety of ways. At the end of each meeting, they gave everybody a campaign packet who would take one, and that was usually just about everyone who attended. And afterward, they followed up with handwritten communications, phone calls, and responded to questions, and in general, supported this group of prospective donors in every way possible to succeed.
And Susie, I'm going to go a little bit off script because you said something that has jogged a point for me, which is this group was able to speak to non-member owners. Now, in a typical campaign, that wouldn't be possible where loans are the primary vehicle of support. But because we had this charitable component, our in-person team could speak to folks who were not member owners about making a charitable gift to the campaign. And that became an important component for what we were doing.
Brenda, one more aspect to that. In that context, the training was really important for all of us, the callers and the in-person. But one thing that wasn't done was we did not discuss the loan piece of our campaign in meeting with non-member owners. So that was something that primarily the in-person team handled.
Exactly. Thank you, Susie. All right, then turning our attention to our call team. Now, this is a more traditional method that food co-ops have used, where member owners are mobilized to reach out to other member owners and ask them by phone to commit to supporting the capital campaign. And our call team did just that. They reached out to member owners by phone, by text, by email, to everyone on our member owner list except the people who had been previously assigned to our in-person team. Now, callers were generally matched with member owners they knew, and then each caller also received a list of member owners to which they were randomly assigned. And these were member owners who were outside the circle of knowledge of our call team. So they were people that nobody on the call team knew, but they were willing to reach out anyway and invite them to participate in the campaign. Now, to support the call team, we crafted a number of email messages and social media messages to help reach out to member owners to let them know that this work would be happening, and also to explain that there were two parts to the campaign: the owner loan and the charitable gift. We kept the details very minimal because we wanted to make sure that we were keeping the private offering of the loan very close to us, but we did explain in communications that there were two portions to the campaign. The other thing that we did over time for our call team was we developed these scripts and updates. And on a weekly basis, we would provide an update to the teams where we would tell them how much had been raised, how much had been, what the average gift had been, how many participants there were, how many people had existing packets still out, so people who were considering either an owner loan or a charitable gift, and the current number of member owners, because that number was growing as we were in the campaign. And then we would do the breakout between the call team and the in-person team as to how many callers were still assigned who hadn't been reached, how many meetings had been scheduled, etc., so that they always had an update and some new information to work with. We also provided them with updated scripts, whatever new information that we had that we could share. So things might be how far away we were from our campaign goal, what the current number of member owners is, any little nugget that they could use to talk with owners about as they reached out. Because sometimes we were reaching out to member owners a number of times, and we wanted to always have something new for them to be able to share to keep people excited about the campaign.
In every capital campaign, recognition is really, truly so important. And one of the things we enjoyed doing was whenever a lender or donor came to close a loan or to submit a donation, we asked them to share the reason why they supported the campaign, and then photograph them with their quote in front of them. And we shared those in photos and on social media. And it was quite a hit. It was a kind of heartwarming to hear what people had to say about their reasons for supporting the co-op.
We also used campaign challenges to our advantage. And this is something that we need to give a little bit of P6 love to the Fredericksburg Food Co-op for. This was an idea that we learned from them at Up and Coming last year. So we learned that they had successfully used challenges as part of their capital campaign. We went home and we got to work on this immediately. So March 6th was Up and Coming. March 13th, we all had a little bit of a curveball thrown at us when a national COVID-19 emergency was declared. So as we were quickly pivoting and trying to determine how we were to finish our capital campaign by our March 31st lease contingency deadline, we decided that we would need to, instead of holding our annual meeting in person, that we would need to quickly change and instead live stream, because we had a very exciting campaign announcement to make. We were about to announce that we had major gifts that would take our campaign from just shy of $900,000 to $1.27 million on our way to our $1.6 million goal. Now, paired with that announcement was a challenge, a $200,000 challenge to our member owners to raise another $200,000 in the next 13 days before the end of March. Believe it or not, in the midst of those early days of the pandemic, our member owners responded, and we raised more than $250,000 in response to that challenge. That was when we knew that we were onto something with challenges. So, despite the fact that our lease contingency was set to expire on March 31st, we talked with our landlords and we were able to extend that lease contingency deadline to May 15th. That was when we launched our second challenge. On April 1st, we launched what we called our $100 challenge. We recognized that with about 1,200 member owners at the time, if each person were to contribute $100 to the campaign, we would be able to take the campaign across the finish line. Now, in our hearts, we knew that not all 1,200 member owners would be able to contribute $100, but the message that we were trying to get across at this point was that every contribution, every participation would make a difference. When we woke up the next morning on April 1st, we were delighted. The email that we had sent overnight quickly produced 52 owners who already had pledged their support for this challenge. And suddenly we went from needing to raise just shy of $105,000 to only $90,000 to our goal. That was the first day. And this campaign would continue on, and this messaging would continue on through the rest of April. The third challenge that we launched was that very first weekend in April. We called it a flash challenge. It started with a small gift, about a $500 charitable gift, and it raised $2,600. Now, this was not going to take us across the finish line, but it did help keep the momentum going. That was our co-op momentum and our term for knowing that things were continuing to push forward. And it gave us something to talk about. That was the other value of these challenges. It gave us something to talk about that was new with our member owners. Over the course of these challenges, the bulk of the participation that we received was to our charitable fund. So that's one of the other reasons that we wanted to talk about these with you today, because we recognize that this was another way to engage donors to participate. By April 18th, we had just $38,000 left to raise. So working remotely, our call teams fired up the phones and started notifying members of what we called our last call challenge. About a dozen member owners had pooled their resources to contribute $19,000 toward that remaining $38,000 that we needed to raise. And they issued a challenge to our other member owners, asking them to match that $19,000 and take our project across the finish line. So over a 2-day weekend, we live streamed, we called, we emailed, we posted to social media, and more than 100 member owners made primarily charitable gifts to help us close out the campaign. Ultimately, on April 25th last year, we announced the successful completion of our capital campaign, having raised more than $1.6 million. Now here, we are providing for you the breakout of our capital campaign loans and gifts. One of the questions that we've often received is, how many people participated by making a loan? How many people participated by making a charitable gift? And what was the typical amount or the median amount that you have? So we've broken the data out here for you. And what we want to share with you is that the projected average, we thought that 140 member owners might make a loan, and that the average loan size would be about $5,700. We actually had a smaller number of member owners make a loan to support the project. The number was actually 91, but the average loan size was $9,174. So we had fewer participants, but the average loan size was actually significantly higher. And that was driven largely by participation from several major participants in the owner loan campaign. When it came to charitable gifts, this is where we received many more participants than we expected. We initially projected, and no one had done this before, so the numbers were something that we did our best to create. We initially projected we might have 210 people participate. We thought we might have about 300 owners total participate. In the end, 575 member owners and non-members participated by making a charitable gift to the campaign. We anticipated or projected that our average gift size might be about $3,800. In the end, the average gift size was just shy of $1,400. Our gift size, as we mentioned early in the presentation, ranged from $10 on the small side to a gift of $100,000. So we had quite a range, but you can see that the heaviest concentration was in the $10 to $249.99 range. And that was where 326 member owners participated. The great thing about this was that owners who participated at every level felt that they had a role in making our capital campaign successful. And this made it accessible to lenders and donors across the economic spectrum.
We'll conclude with just a little bit about our timeline. The campaign was about 9 months. It felt really fast. And I think when you get into yours, you'll see that you're quite busy, because ours was a volunteer-driven process. And I think that's how it is with co-ops, and it's pretty exciting. We started in midsummer of 2019, and we called that our pre-campaign phase. And this included in-person meetings with just a few of us, meeting with about 60 people. And many of those were former co-op board members and committee members. And so they were good friends of the co-op, and we wanted to start with them, hoping to gain commitments for a large amount to announce when we actually kicked off the campaign. And also a goal was to secure 100% participation from this group, and that we did achieve. In fact, both of those goals turned out pretty well, and so we had a nice chunk to talk about when we kicked off, and we could say that we had a 100% commitment. Then in November, as Brenda told you, we launched the campaign on the same day as the site was announced. And it was a terrible day, but a tent full of very happy people. That began phase one. Once we had reached the 1,000-member mark, we knew that we could launch the campaign, and that's what happened. So we went from November to December 15th and took a break through the holidays from December 15th to late January. On January 25th, we launched phase 2 of our campaign, and that was to raise the remaining 2/3 of our campaign goal. That looked daunting, but here we were in the midst of it, and as you've heard Brenda describe, the crew really pitched in and got it done. After 3 major challenges, which she just told you about, we concluded the campaign on April 25th, 2020. And this team continues to seek grants that support the co-op's vision to support the local economy, improve health, and build community. So that grant piece of our fundraising is ongoing, and we will continue that to fund some of the projects that the campaign or the co-op hopes to undertake in the future.
Now, we know that we have covered a lot in this presentation and that there's a lot here. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at the email addresses that we've provided on the screen. And just one final note, we've been so grateful for our partnership with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. You've heard us mention them again and again, and for their membership in the Council on Foundations. Together, they've helped us chart a course to develop this innovative funding model for the Oshkosh Food Co-op. And we're also very grateful to the Food Co-op Initiative and the many, many, many food co-op mentors who've P6'd their knowledge on capital campaigns to us and helped us prepare for this campaign. Of course, you're in that spot now by the fact that you are in this presentation. So our final word is best of luck to you. And if we can provide ongoing support, please let us know how we can help. Thank you for attending this session. We wish you the best. Goodbye.